Well, looks like former KGB member and current president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, has officially joined the culture war, and of course, many people are stunned and shocked about his latest comments about liberalism, multiculturalism, and of course, immigration. All of this on the heels of the G20 meeting that is happening right now. And here in the United States, while of course the mainstream media obsesses about an offhanded comment and joke made between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, behind the scenes, the situation is definitely very tense, as we see here in an exchange between ousted former leader of the United Kingdom, Theresa May, and Vladimir Putin as they met in not the warmest of ways, as highlighted in this picture, and are worth 1,000 words here, to say the least, in minimum. Now we're going to get into that, plus a lot more, especially what is happening domestically in the United States after the presidential debates last night, which, of course, will correlate with Putin's criticism. And before we do that, I want to thank everyone who keeps this independent media organization up and running, whether through your donations, or now even you could support us without spending a single dime by just using independent, privacy-focused crypto platforms like Brave, Presearch, and of course many others that we have listed on wearechange.org/donate. Sincerely, thank you for allowing us to be here for you with independent journalism that is not coerced or manipulated by any corporation, special interest, or government. So I would definitely say our current political situation, especially in regards to a, quote, culture war that everyone keeps obsessing about, is definitely interesting. Last night, we just finished the first rounds of the presidential debates for the 2020 presidential election, and of course, the New Yorker characterizes the political situation in a very interesting way by titling a story here saying, quote, Kamala Harris won in Miami, but Vladimir Putin won in Osaka. Now, of course, there is a lot of spin, a lot of propaganda, a lot of manipulation when it comes to the mainstream media diagnosing what is happening politically in our country. And honestly, there's a lot to criticize, especially with all of the candidates last night promising to give every illegal immigrant that comes into the United States unlimited free healthcare. They also promised free education, free schooling, free debt forgiveness, free pre-K, free everything to fight the alleged rampant of racism, sexism, and also ageism, which Bernie Sanders was talking about. And of course, I am generalizing my comments here, but a lot of these policies are absolutely insane and nuts. Because, hey, if they're giving out free healthcare, even free lawyers and schooling and education at the border, I'm going to go cross the border illegally if that's going to happen. And all of this accumulating to what some would critically describe as peak liberalism, as one of the contenders for the 2020 race on the Democratic side said that he would give free healthcare, would give an abortion to a trans woman, which again is a male at birth, but has decided to transition from a man to a woman, and this guy wants to give trans women the right to have an abortion that biologically can't. This is the current state of our political system. Now, of course, a trans man before surgery can have an abortion, but he specifically said a trans woman, while on purpose or accidentally trying to, of course, appease a wider base of support with his comments that actually have no basis in reality. Now, of course, U.S. President Donald Trump criticized the debate by slamming, quote, Sleepy Joe and Crazy Bernie, describing one as exhausted and the other nuts. But the bigger, more kind of stunning and more aggressive attacks on these kind of newer Western values and views came from, of course, Russian President Vladimir Putin. That definitely didn't hold back on his views on immigration, multiculturalism, and a lot of other issues. And of course, his viewpoints and his latest comments are a direct opposite to the mainline left-wing thinking, with him representing, obviously, right-wing thinking. And in an interview with the Financial Times, he laid out his arguments, opening up by first talking about, by saying that what's happening in the West, quote, and that what is the reason for Trump the phenomenon, as said in the U.S., what is happening in Europe as well, that the ruling elite have broken away from the people. And again, quote, there's also the so-called liberal idea which has outlived its purpose. Now, it's interesting that obviously he mentioned the situation in the UK, which has ousted Theresa May for failing to commit to Brexit, the rise of the Brexit Party. It's interesting that he talked about Trump and the rise of Donald Trump in the United States, with, of course, the growth of more nationalistic populist ideas on the main stage being supported by, of course, more people. And, of course, he backdrops this with, of course, a criticism of liberalism, which he also ties into globalism, going on and saying, quote, liberals cannot simply dictate anything to anyone, just like they have been attempting to do over the recent decades. Criticized the German government's decision to allow 1 million refugees, really, they're not really refugees, they're really economic migrants to Germany, calling it, of course, a cardinal mistake, and praising Donald Trump for, of course, trying to stop immigrants and what he calls drugs, and later going on describing what he believes to be criminal activities by these migrants. Even hyperbolically saying, quote, that migrants can kill, plunder, and rape with impunity because their rights as immigrants have to be protected. Then going on specifically to criticize, quote, mindless multiculturalism and diversity by saying, quote, I am not trying to insult anyone because we have been condemned for our alleged homophobia, but we have no problem with LGBT persons. God forbid, let them live as they wish. But some things do appear excessive to us. They claim now that children can play 5 or 6 gender roles. Let everyone be happy. We have no problem with that. But this must not be allowed to overshadow the culture, traditions, and traditional family values of millions of people making up the core population. Now, of course, those were not the only controversial comments said by Vladimir Putin, as of course there was more direct verbal confrontations with the UK leadership, which Putin criticized by saying that Russia is, quote, more democratic than the United Kingdom, which led to Theresa May ordering Putin to, quote, stop irresponsible and destabilizing meddling. All of this with, of course, allegations against Russia for chemical weapons attack in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is bringing up against Russia. And, of course, the tensions seem to be very clear between Vladimir Putin and, of course, the rest of the Western countries that he criticized. There definitely is no love affair between the nations, and of course tensions will only grow from here. But I kind of wanted to leave it to you and ask you, what do you think of Vladimir Putin's talking points, of his criticisms? Let me know if you agree with them, if you disagree with them, because in larger part I do believe that what Putin was doing here was trying to, of course, cater to Donald Trump, ushering, of course, very similar epithets and very similar talking points to what Donald Trump has talked about on the world stage before, and of course was also criticized before. Because now if you look at the relationship between Russia and the United States, it is also not a very cozy one. All of this on the backdrop, of course, of an ailing and what many people call failing European Union, which, of course, Vladimir Putin is not an ally of. Geopolitically, there is a larger game unfolding here that is very interesting to uncover, because if you look at the world stage, especially with what is happening in Syria, in Iran, in Cuba, and Venezuela, and Ukraine, and many other proxies, small economic, financial, or even physical conflicts. These major proxies are happening between Russia and the United States being at odds with each other, contrary to what the mainstream media, Western establishment, dinosaur media wants you to think. There is no major love affair on the world stage between Russia and the United States. But could Putin be signaling to Donald Trump that he is alongside his ideology to, of course, try to simmer some of the aggressive U.S. foreign policy actions in order, of course, to benefit him and his cause? What do you think of that possible theory of what could be happening here? What do you think of that theory, of course, that does not have any evidence behind it, but speculation? And, of course, here in the United States, the main thing that everyone's talking about is of course, the comment of Trump telling Putin not to meddle in the elections, and, of course, Vladimir Putin laughing at the situation, which I find irrelevant in comparison to, of course, these larger contexts and these larger ideas that he brought out there. Now, according to some body language experts, during the meeting with Putin, Donald Trump tried to, of course, dominate the meeting, while an analysis says that Putin was just unimpressed, trying, of course, to get down to business. And there's a lot of business between the United States and Russia that does need to get rectified, that does need to be solved, that is at a stalemate, that would benefit, honestly, both countries if there was a larger resolution to the greater geopolitical events that are unfolding between these two major superpowers. Now, to me, this is an important discussion that, of course, will never happen on the Western media, that, of course, is trying to frame particular ideas in your mind to push, of course, a certain agenda. We see that through, of course, the presidential debates, as, of course, the media darling of the establishment elite, Kamala Harris, was being pushed forward, giving a lot of speaking time, promoted, widely celebrated as this charismatic, commanding politician, which Kathleen Johnston correctly calls an oligarch's wet dream, while, of course, politicians like Andrew Yang are complaining of NBC cutting off his mic, while Tulsi Gabbard complains about giving less time to talk than, of course, her counterparts, and also being asked a complete smear question by NBC during the debates. An agenda is laid out here and is very clear, which, of course, we should always question, including Vladimir Putin and Russia himself, which you could say a lot of critical things about, but this criticism should be measured and, of course, at least have a counter understanding of what is happening here on this wider, more complicated, more sophisticated world stage that is harder and harder to understand. But we do our best to kind of simplify it as much as we can, and if you thought we did that, if you thought this video was important, share this video with your friends and family members. You guys don't understand how important you are. If you don't share it, most likely it won't get out there to the larger public. I saw my friends' percentage of videos that are recommended to the general public, and I saw mine, and it is jaw-dropping to see what is happening behind the scenes. Share this video if you liked it, because if you don't, no one else is really going to see it. And because you guys still do, because we still have some kind of viewership, because we still have your attention, this is why I love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.